Welcome to the hottest real estate topics on the planet, keeping you up to date with all the creative ways to buy and sell real estate without bank qualifying, so anyone can build real income starting today. Here is another great show with Dealmaker Bill and Pete the Rookie.
All right, here we are at another episode of Flipping Houses for Rookies.
Hey, Bill.
Peter.
Bill.
Episode number 120.
Oh, that sounds like something.
Yeah, imagine if we were 120 years old. Hey, Pete, what's going on? Now look at that house.
Bill, I hate to tell you, between the two of us, we are.
Oh, boy, here we go.
Don't do the math.
Name of today's episode is, moving on. No, name of today's episode is Why I Don't Do Due Diligence Before I Make an Offer.
Ooh. Well, gee, that sounds dangerous. Why would you do that? What if what?
Exactly.
Okay, go ahead.
The description in iTunes is going to say, flipping houses shouldn't take much time or cause much anxiety. That is why Pete and Bill, you and I, will reveal how to remove 90% of the stress when doing deals. We're going to do that today. These simple cherry-picked benefits are not what the general public are aware of or use when buying and selling real estate. That's why it's stressful for them.
Well, when you don't know, you don't know.
Exactly.
That's what stresses you.
In fact, if you don't know these simple laws, you'll most often end up with very skinny margins a lot of times. Most investors today don't have the credit or money to use banks. That we know. So they have no choice but to start with creative financing deals and avoid dangerous traps while doing these deals. In this podcast, you'll learn the most important drawbacks that hold most down and how to discover a better way.
Amen.
How is that for a promise?
Deliver, man, deliver.
So the first thing I want to talk about, Peter, is it's conventional. When I mean conventional, I mean like when people say they want to become an investor, here's what I think they think. Now, I'm asking you, the rookie, because you represent the rookies out there listening to us. You're closer to the beginning than I have been for a very long time.
And don't you forget it that I always will be. Wait a minute, is that good?
So what most people think when they think about flipping houses is a 4-step program. Okay, and it kind of goes like something like this: find a distressed house, right?
Right.
Then once they find it, buy it, and usually that means cheap. At least that's what the sellers think when you say I'm a flipper. They think you're going to buy it cheap.
Right.
Okay, because that's what's promoted. Right, like on A&E and all those places, right?
Right.
So that's number 2. Number 3, you fix the house. And number 4, you sell it for a profit. So let's do it like 1, 2, 3. So, or 1, 2, 3, 4.
4. Don't forget the Bill. 4 is why we do 1, 2, 3.
I knew that was the way you were going to say that.
Wow.
All right, so 1, find a distressed house. 2, buy the house, usually cheap. Number 3, fix the house. And number 4, sell the house for profit. Is that fair to say?
How about the find the money part?
Yeah.
Do you want to put that in there?
Yeah. Well,
make it a 5-step process.
When you say buy the house, that's part of it.
That's part of that. There it is. Yeah, it's got to be in there because they don't have the money usually at the beginning.
But technically, that's the business plan. So I think this kind of hit me, I guess you would say, because I mean, really, these podcasts are very arbitrary based on what's happened in my life. I guess you could say that, which is why we started a new podcast. Which, by the way, I want to announce it. We actually picked a date.
Launch date.
Halloween of 2018.
Halloween, all right.
Halloween of 2018. That's what Emma says. It's a little close for us to be ready, but we are going to launch. And the name of that podcast is called Flipping Houses Startup Bootcamp. And what you and I have done, because you have a lot of talent in educating people, and I have a lot of talent with real estate, and you too, you are getting that way too.
I'm learning that from you.
Yeah, and so what we've done is we've started this startup boot camp so that people can start from the beginning and go in sequence. Like they have a checklist, and they're going down the checklist and just doing what they need to do as a podcast. And then what we did is we hooked to the podcast a closed Facebook group. So as you're doing the work, you have a place to go ask questions. So it's a lot of support.
Right. And as you hear the podcast, you can go to that section and see things like see forms, have a script, watch a video, get more reality.
Right.
Not just words coming over speakers, but like see it.
Right.
So you can get a real idea what to do.
And it's not
it's
really
about do.
It's not really about like we're trying to train you. It's just that we're trying to like point you in the right direction of the action that you need to take while you're doing this business. So it's not so much that we're trying to like this is like a course or something like that. You know, like you buy an online course. Like my How to Buy Real Estate Without a Loan is a phenomenal course. I mean, we've made hundreds. My students have made hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars out of that course for $500.
They have. And I remember talking to them. No, you really should come to the meeting. Like, yeah, buy it. No, seriously, what are you going to do? You're going to buy something else? You're going to buy nothing? You're going to spend thousands someplace else? Just buy it. Yeah. Bang, and then they make money.
If I put a speaker on the road and we went to the RIA meetings, we would sell it for $2,000.
Yeah.
Because we would have to, by the time, pay for all the expenses and split it with the RIAs because that's how they work. And, but we would sell it for $2,000 easily, hands down, and we would sell tons of them. We've sold tons of them already, right?
Well, this is direct buying.
Yeah.
No middleman. Cut the middleman out. Straight from Bill.
Right.
Straight from Bill and Pete.
So, anyways,
hey Bill,
you find that on flipping.
Maybe we're real estate guides.
Real estate guides. There you go. I like it. So you can find any of that stuff on flippinghousesforrookies.com. I diverted there. That's, I guess, our commercial because we have no paid ads, so I'm the paid ad.
Yeah.
So my point is that where I started this from is that my wife tells me all the time that she like she reiterates this comment all the time, thinking that she's being an investor. Oh, you gotta buy an ugly house in a pretty neighborhood. That's how you make money.
And she still says that?
She says it all the time.
Still?
Yeah.
You haven't taught her.
She just said it recently.
Wait a minute. Doesn't she listen to the podcast?
Evidently not.
Wow.
So that's like the thought.
My wife doesn't either.
Yeah.
She just waits for the check.
Yeah, she waits for the check.
Hey, Bill, I got her to go shopping with me yesterday. Pick up towel racks and toilet roll holders.
My wife doesn't wait for the check anymore. She just buys whatever she wants and expects me to pay for it.
Just gives you the bill.
She doesn't even care anymore.
Oh, no.
Anyways, so that's like the common think.
Yeah.
Right? Like this 4-step program. Buy the ugliest house in the prettiest neighborhood, and, that's what you consider a distressed house. Okay? And then buy the house, and then fix the house, and then sell it for a profit. You want to know something?
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people have made a lot of money like that. Kiyosaki, Donald Trump, I don't know. I don't even know who else to name.
Say Ron LeGrand.
No, Ron LeGrand that's not his model.
Just a little bit he does.
Yeah, well, he does do it. Like me, I do it, but it's not my first foot forward. We're going to talk about that. Okay? Yeah. All right. So what most people don't know, they just don't know, because until you start getting into this business, all right, what most people don't know is that there's a bigger business in pretty houses than in ugly houses. Okay? And technically, here's what happens. Let me jump ahead here. Get my notes. So, like I said in the description, right, most investors don't have the credit or the money to use banks to buy these properties, especially if they're ugly houses and you need to go to a bank or a hard money lender, which, by the way, hard money lenders are not far from banks at this point.
Right.
So the only way you can really make that business work is with private money, and the difference is private money doesn't charge points, and it's a little easier to use, and They're usually family and friends. We meaning you and I, use a lot of IRA money, right? That's another episode which we've done in the past. We'll do it again. That's a whole business within a business, is getting the money, like you brought up. Okay? But when you start buying pretty houses and you don't have good credit, or you don't have, like, the hard money nowadays, they want 10% down, they want 15% down. It's like,
geez, it is a bank.
It is a bank, and they still check your credit. When I first started this business, the difference between a bank and a hard money lender is the bank actually checked your credit to see how you would pay back. The hard money lender didn't care about your credit because he knew that he was buying the asset low enough that if you failed, he could take the asset back and he could get his money. So it was called asset lending.
Yeah, the house is collateral for him.
Yeah. So nowadays, it's not that way. So it's very unusual, unless you're doing private money, that you get 100% of your deal funded, right?
Oh, yeah.
So how do you do that? So somebody doesn't have 10 grand or 20 grand or 5 grand or 30 grand or whatever the number is. How do they do this?
Yeah, that's what stopped me years ago. I'd look at it, I'd go to meetings, and I didn't have extra money like that. Young family, kids, no, didn't have it.
Right.
Wanted the money, but didn't have money to do it, so I poked around for years. Wasted a lot of time.
So that's the big thing, right? So the big thing is if you're buying ugly houses, you got to play that game. But if you're buying pretty houses, which is the key, first of all, there's a lot more of them. Second of all, you don't need to do that. And I'm going to explain that in a couple minutes. So what we're actually looking for, okay, is distressed people, not distressed property.
Well put.
Right?
Yeah.
Or distressed situations. Right? And I don't mean desperate. I'm not talking about foreclosure, because I made a list here, okay, of what I consider to be distressed.
Right.
Because most people think, oh, the first thing on the list is going to be foreclosure. I do not buy foreclosed property. I think they're a pain in the ass, and I don't like that desperateness.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because there's too many potential problems. They can come back later and say, I took advantage of them and all that. I'm not doing that. So what I consider to be distressed is somebody like divorce, house needs repairs. Like I was in a house making an offer yesterday, and it's a probate deal. The house needs $40,000 worth of work, and they have the money, but they just don't want to do it because they feel like they're chasing good money with old money. Right. At this particular point, there's 3 sisters. They're like, you know what? Let's just get rid of it. It's got asbestos. It needs a furnace. It just needs.
Yeah, 3 ladies. They don't want to do that.
Yeah, and the youngest one is 78, and the oldest one is 92.
Oh, geez, they should be baking.
They should be baking. I was thinking they should be on the front of the Betty Crocker book.
Yeah, baking.
A picture.
Yeah,
they shouldn't even be baking. They should just be the picture of the cookbook, right?
We baked.
Yeah. We bake. We are baked.
Oh, shit.
How about bad tenants?
Yes.
How about over-leveraged property? Did you know, and you know this, but most don't know that there is a huge, huge, huge business in over-leveraged property. That means buying a house that's worth $100,000 for $110,000 and still making $5,000, $10,000, $15,000. And that's what we do. That's what you and I do.
When we run into those. Can be done.
Yeah, and I've bought houses as much as $30,000 over the asking price. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And made $60,000, $80,000. Okay, if you know how to do it, it's good. How about relocation?
Sure.
How about making 2 payments? Right, like for example, divorce.
I got 2 houses.
Yeah. That's a perfect example.
Yeah, I'm taking care of Mom.
Yep.
But when she passes, I can't stay there and have 2 houses and go back and forth. So
So
it goes.
What about divorce? Right? They get divorced. They're mid-30s or mid-40s usually. Well, look at your son with his situation. Right. Your son got divorced, and the wife's still in the condo, and they're trying to figure out what to do with it.
She wants to stay there, and he wants his equity out of it. And
right.
She doesn't have any equity to give him, so rock in a hard place.
That's one situation. But how about you get divorced and they move on, right? The kids grow up, whatever. Now all of a sudden, she meets him, he meets her, They each have their own house. Next thing you know, oops.
One house too many.
Yeah, we don't go to my house that much anymore. Why don't we talk about maybe not having that payment?
Mm-hmm.
They got 2 payments. It's not that it's a destitute situation. It's just that they have 2 payments and they don't want them.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So that's what I'm talking about with desperate. Okay?
Sure.
Now here's the point of the show. How far are we? We're halfway in. 15 minutes, does it say?
Hey, Emma, where's the clock?
It's up there. It's up in the top left-hand
I can't
side.
see that far.
The 2 old guys can't see the clock. So here's the point of the show, halfway through. So the reason why I don't need due diligence on the house is because I'm not buying the house.
When you're making the offer, like at that stage.
Right.
You haven't bought it. What stage you're at? You're in the house, you're making the offer, you're talking to the people,
Right.
You're in the home.
So it goes like this. In my head, it goes like this. Qualify the seller first, then qualify the house.
Right.
Okay? Which is why I don't do due diligence, because there's no sense in doing due diligence if the seller's not going to come around to my way of thinking.
Sure. Because the house itself is just math, right? You go online, get numbers, check things out, and you can do that. You could have somebody do that for you. But the other part, when you're in a house talking to somebody, it takes some communication and a little skill to talk to somebody and see what's going on and find a way to help them. To me, that's the much trickier part. It's not just math.
Right.
You're talking to somebody.
That's exactly right. And my joke is this. It's my joke because nobody really laughs when I say it, so it's my own. It's a Bill Planet thing.
I'll laugh for you.
I've never been to a closing where a house signed the documents. It's always been people.
Sure.
Right? So it's a people business. So if you're not a people, then this is not your business.
No, find a distressed house.
No, hang on. No, actually, I'm saying that. I keep saying that. I just changed my mind.
What?
If you're not a people person, then go to the first model where you find a distressed house, you buy the house, you fix the house, and you sell it for a profit. Yeah. Because then you could use a realtor, you can use contractors. You don't need to deal with buying. You don't need to deal with selling because you hire people and pay them to do that. Mm-hmm. It costs you 12 or 15% to sell the house, selling cost. Mm-hmm. But if your margin, and that's all part of your margin, so that means you just got to buy cheaper. Mm-hmm. And if you're buying that cheap, which by the way, you're going to probably buy at 40, 50 cents on the dollar when you're doing that to do it correctly. Mm-hmm. If you're going up to 60 and 70 cents on the dollar, you're not going to make money. Nope. And you only make one profit center there.
Right. And you know what? You still have to talk to somebody.
Well, you got to talk to the realtor. You got to talk to the lawyer.
That's not the hard part.
What?
The contractors.
Yeah, the contractors.
You got contractors and all that stuff. That doesn't just happen like snapping your fingers.
But the point is you don't need to have much sales skills. You don't need to have people skills to do that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. So that's a way to do it. If you're going to do what we're talking about, if you don't have credit and you don't have money and you can't use banks and you don't have that ability and need to do creative financing, right? Like what we do.
Well, that sounds like most of the people I know get into real estate, because most people get into real estate because we don't have money.
Right.
You know, we're not in it because we have so much we have to get rid of it. So most of us are in that boat. Like, how do we do this without having enough credit?
Right.
So this is the model that people like me need.
Right.
That's why I bagged it for decades. Like, how am I supposed to do that? A lawyer's $1,000.
Right.
You know, that kind of crap.
So the answer to this riddle that you're talking about is how do you do it lies in this very small statement. It's time versus value of money.
Aha.
So I actually wrote this because it's a little bit of there's a lot here in these couple of paragraphs. Okay. So what does time versus value of money mean? So here's what you and I do. This is what we specialize in. Okay. You get time to pay your seller in full by working with their existing mortgage, having them do seller financing, or possibly leasing from them. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Yep.
Once you get that, then you give your tenant buyer some of that time to get qualified so they can pay off your seller. And then, because of that, they'll pay a premium price for the property, for the opportunity. Mm-hmm. Right? So when we buy ugly houses and we renovate them, which we do, I made an offer on one yesterday.
Yeah.
We want to buy low enough that we can not only do all of our stuff, but we want to be below market value when exit, when we go to sell, because we want to do it all within a 12-month period.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, this is where the time comes in. So the money becomes more relevant because it's sooner. There's not time to pay for it.
Right.
There's only 12 months.
Right.
When we do pretty houses, we get 24 months, 36 months, 48 months.
10 years.
10 years, right? Depending on how much they owe. And that's the factor that most people don't pay attention to.
Mm-hmm.
Now, why are we talking about all this on a due diligence, why I don't do diligence podcast? Because that's exactly what you need to know on why you don't need to do due diligence. Because you're doing your due diligence on your on your seller, not on the house.
Mm.
And when you flip that switch in your head, like, oh, I'm not looking for real estate. I'm looking for motivated sellers that are flexible and will give me time to pay off the house. You then could be a creative real estate specialist like we are, right?
Yes.
And not need credit or money or anything like that. Matter of fact, if you're doing lease options, if you're leasing properties from owners and not even buying them, you have no risk. You're going to give $100 or $10 security deposit, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
There's no risk. You and I are buying a piece of property right now that's worth $280,000. It probably needs $30,000 or $40,000 worth of work. We can get away with selling it on a handyman special and not do that work,
Mm-hmm.
but we're paying $300,000.
Mm.
Reason why we're paying $300,000. Sorry for my throat here. I don't know what's going on. The reason why we're paying $300,000 is because we put time in there.
Right.
Right. My dumb analogy is if you were to buy my computer today for $1,000 and give me $1,000 worth of cash, how much you paying for the computer?
$1,000.
Right. Because you're giving me $1,000 right now. I'm giving you the computer.
Mm-hmm.
Right. But if you took that same transaction and you put it on your credit card and paid for it for 24 months, how much are you going to pay? More than $1,000.
Sure.
So we're doing the same thing with houses. I mean, it's a dumb analogy, but it's perfect.
No,
for
it's true. Anything
describing
is like
what
that.
we're doing.
Anything's like. I mean, if somebody came up to you, and they had something to sell, if you said, "Look, I got cash right now," and somebody says, "Well, I'll pay you more later," it just depends. If the guy needs the money now, he's going to take your low offer. If he says, "Well, I can wait a while," he'll take the other guy's offer to wait.
Right.
I mean, if you can make me wait, I want something. It's
Right.
called money.
Right.
If a person's going to get you a chance to buy a house that he can't buy, he has to pay more.
Right.
Or else he's stuck on a rent the rest of his life getting yelled at by the wife.
And that was an observation completely by you way back when, because I was doing it and didn't even realize it. So that's completely, well done to you for observing that, because that's exactly what we do. It helped us articulate what we do.
Mm-hmm.
What makes us different. Like, for example, I got a meetup I go to every Wednesday morning, and there's a realtor in there that's a friend of mine. And he's like, he stands up and he's like, anybody that's got a house for sale, I'll do an evaluation for him. He's looking for houses for sale. So now I got to stand up after him and say, anybody that's got a house for sale,
I'll buy it.
So
what do you say?
Yeah. So how do you get around that? You have to have a unique selling proposition.
Uh-huh.
So what I say is anybody that has a house for sale and can't use Alan because they have a problem, I can help them.
Mm.
Or if they owe too much money, I can help them. If they
Alan,
owe too much money because Alan, who's the realtor, can't sell them.
Nope. That's a conventional sale. All the interest, all the fees involved. And
Right.
Nope.
Right. Okay. So let me read that again, and then we're going to move on, right? So what we do is we get time to pay the seller in full by working with their existing mortgage. If it's free and clear, we can do a seller financing deal, or we can just lease the property.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get that time, we give some of it, not some of it. So we might get 5 years, but only give our tenant buyer 2 years. So we have a cushion there, right? So we give some of that time to our tenant buyer so they can get qualified for a mortgage to actually pay off the seller. And because we give them the time, they actually pay a premium price.
Right.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's talk about, because I know that there's some skeptics out here. I know that we have some skeptics.
What part of that would they be skeptical about?
Why would the seller want to do this with us?
Mm-hmm.
Why would the seller want to give us time?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I made a list.
Okay.
Okay. So foremost thing, and I have to tell you that I'm training a new acquisition manager. So this is like all over my forehead because I'm like, I just keep pounding him and drilling him and pounding him because not enough of my coaching students do this, and this is why they're not making deals. This is freaking huge. You have to say this over and over and over and over and over. Be a broken record with it. The number one reason why somebody would give us time is so they can get more money.
Okay. That's not very complicated.
So, but people don't say it. It's like too simple and they skip over it.
I'm assuming that people think the guy needs money now because maybe I do or they do. A lot of us need it now and don't want to wait. But I've seen the people in the houses. They have a house. They have a business. They got money. There's this extra house that fell on their lap.
Exactly.
That's a pain in the neck.
Sometimes it's not about getting money. It's about removing the debt, removing the expense.
Yeah.
So sometimes it's like, I don't care if I don't get any money. If I could just stop paying the $1,800 a month, I'd be happy.
Yeah, and then later on they'll get some money.
Right.
It's like an investment. Like people go out of the way to buy houses for investment. Some folks have a house and it's a problem, and if they just hang on to it and let us do what we do, it'll be an investment for them. They'll get a little more than if they just dumped it.
Exactly.
So I tell the people on the phone, it's like, you have a possible investment. Why dump it fast?
Right.
Keep it if you can.
So the number one thing that we do when we're evaluating deals is we go over money now. How much money are we going to make now? How much money are we going to make monthly? And how much money are we going to make later? Do we need all three of those to make a deal? No. But all three of those predicate how much time we keep in the deal.
Right.
So if we're making money now, just money now, then we're not going to put a lot. We're going to put 15, 20 hours into the deal, if that, and that's it. Mm-hmm. But if we're making money now and then money monthly and money later, we'll spend more time on the deal because it's bigger numbers.
Right.
That's exactly how I buy a $240,000 house for $260,000 and make $84,000. Is because I do money now, money monthly, money later. Mm-hmm. Which, by the way, if you want to see how I do that, just go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/free stuff and go to the owner financing section. There's a video there. It's a free video.
The owner financing deal, and you explain how you do it.
So I think it's the last video on the page, but you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/free stuff. Mm-hmm. There's a bunch of stuff on there. Mm-hmm. We've got a new page and it's amazing. I've had great reviews from it. So much easier to use. But just go down to the owner financing video, and I actually do an example of how I buy a $240,000 house. I pay $260 for it. I sell it for $260, and I make $84,000.
I love your math, Bill.
Yeah, I get good math.
Your math is terrible. 260 minus 260 is 84,000. I love the way you do that.
Exactly. And if you go watch that video, it's about a 20-minute video. You can see exactly how I do that. Okay, so why would the seller want to do this? Number one, they get more money. Number two, and this is a big one. These are almost in order of how I hear them. Okay, they avoid being accidental landlords. Right?
Yeah.
Because how many times have we heard that? Okay, so they humble and they're like, okay, I'm not going to get my cash. Right? So if I could just eliminate the debt, I'd be happy. And they become an accidental landlord. See, one of the things that you'll realize is if you do what we're doing and you start putting your marketing out and you start getting calls in, okay? There's two buckets. This is what I train my acquisition managers. There's two buckets. One, you're going to have somebody that has a house that's a burden, right? It's a total burden. Some way, somehow, it's a burden. And then two, they're gonna be like what we call that's called the prospect, by the way. Yeah. A suspect is someone that has a house and it's a savings account to them, and they're like, yep, I want to cash in. I'm gonna go down to the bank and I'm gonna get my $30,000.
Mine. It's all mine.
It's all mine.
It's all mine. You can't have any of it.
Exactly.
I'll sell it to you, but you have to lose money.
And by the way, it's all fake money. We'll go on the Donald Trump thing. It's like fake news. It's fake money. Because they have no idea how much it costs them to sell a house, and they think they're making 30. And when we get done with them, they find out, oops, it's maybe 13.
Yeah,
right. Because they have expenses and fees and stuff that are part of a transaction they have no idea are going to happen until they hit them in the face. Okay, so it's fake money. Okay, so but forget about all that. They haven't sold the house for whatever reason, and they've become an accidental landlord. So that's another reason why they would sell a house. Okay. How about this one? Ruin their credit because they have two payments. So now all of a sudden they start paying slower. They're kind of struggling along. Maybe not. It doesn't even have to ruin their credit. It could just be they have two payments and don't want them. Okay? That happens to us a lot. Avoid the closing costs. Why do you think there's such a thing as a FSBO.
For sale by owner.
For sale by owner. That's the only reason there is such a thing as a for sale by owner.
Yeah.
They don't like the realtor, which happens a lot. It's more than you would imagine because the realtor system is broken, but it's the only thing we have, so we're forced to use it because there isn't another system like what we use. We haven't created an association and come together as a bunch of investors where we could just buy houses, and that's another story. But the point is that for sale by owners don't have a choice. The only choice they have is A, sell with a realtor, or B, sell it on their own. Problem is when they go sell it on their own, they have to deal with all the phone calls. They don't have a bank in place for their buyers so they can find them the money. They don't know who the inspector is. They don't know what the process is, so they can't guide the buyer along because they don't know what the steps are.
And therefore can't control the whole transaction.
And it becomes a burden to them because they don't know how to do it, and they're trying to work and make their money and do. I mean, this is a by the way part of their life. This is not their career, you know. And all that work is not worth the fees. That's why 88% of for sale by owners go to realtors because they get in the middle of it and it's too much work because they thought it was just going to be simple. Okay.
Gee, Bill, they should come to us.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So the number one thing that a for sale by owner wants is the most amount of money and avoid all the fees. Right. That's why they're for sale by owners.
Yep.
Okay. Let me see here. So I put here May. I don't know what I put here. May 1, 2 on. Yeah, I can't even read my own writing.
You've got good writing.
Yeah, but I don't know what I wrote here.
Oh, boy.
So I think I just covered it. They may want too much and not want to pay the fees because they owe too much. I think that's what I'm trying to say here, is they owe too much. So it's not a matter of want. They just might have over leveraged the property and they can't afford to sell the property and pay the fees without coming out of pocket, and they don't have the money to come out of pocket or don't want to come out of pocket.
Yeah, you'd think, gee, well, how does somebody get in that situation? They've had the house for years. They must have been paying it down, right?
Right.
No, they use it as a credit card.
Yeah.
They take loans, home equity. You know, I've done it. I've used it.
Right.
And then they wind up keep using it, and now the credit's not so hot, and then they're in trouble.
So let's talk about the worst disease in the house business. This is like, you know, like with a human body, you talk about cancer, and it's like, ooh. You know, it's like, oh, that could kill you. Well, this is the same equivalent to that with houses. Holding costs.
You're killing
Look
me.
at Peter.
You're killing me. You're killing me.
We got a house that has too much of that.
You're killing me.
Holding costs. You know, all the taxes and
I'm not
mortgage
going to mention my condo. It's such a good long-term investment, Bill.
Yeah, exactly. So somebody could just have a house, and you were saying before that they use their house as a credit card. Well, there are some people that don't do that just have a vacant house, and they've held it so long that all of a sudden it owes them all this money, and it's like, oops, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's the
Right?
bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that house I was in yesterday, Mom and Dad died 4 or 5 years ago.
It's just been sitting for 4 years.
I guess.
Eek.
Well, they go in it all the time. They use it. Some people have been living in there, and it's like all of a sudden nobody's living there, and it's a problem.
And they're older ladies.
Pete, I don't understand it. The math doesn't make sense to me.
What?
If the older people are like 90 years old, and the mother and father were like only died 4 or 5 years ago, I don't understand how this math worked. I don't understand how she's telling me this, because it's like,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I mean, I like to make some kooky ass math, believe me, but that's math. I just can't figure
The
that
older
one
one
out.
is like 90?
Yeah, well,
90,
she
91?
said that she's 78 and her sisters are 11 and 12 years older than she is.
Okay, so the oldest is 90.
Yeah.
The parents died 4 years ago, so they're 86 when they died.
Yeah.
So the parents had to be like 12 when they had kids.
Yeah, pretty much. Like, I didn't understand that. So anyway.
Luckily, we don't have to factor that into our finance, creative financing.
So too much holding costs is one thing. Here's another one, relocation.
Yep.
So when somebody needs to relocate, like I tell the story all the time about the guy that I had in Southington, Connecticut. You know, he had a job here. I'm assuming he had a $100,000 a year job. Got a job up in Canada for like $250,000. He's out of here.
Yeah. Well, even the house we're finishing right now, the folks had to go out to Colorado.
Yeah, that's right.
Quick, they're like 4 or 5 weeks, and how do you do that?
Another one is too many repairs. right? Usually probates like that, but too many repairs. They don't have the money, or don't know how to, or don't want to, or don't want to live in the house while the repairs are being done.
Well, even if you went and did all that, how much would you make? You get your money back,
Right?
and maybe a little more, but
Right. It's plain old just vacant and annoying.
yeah.
I mean, it sounds simple, but for the person that's in that position, that's a problem.
But I think the guy we saw, one of the first people we saw years ago, he had his own house. Parents died, left the house. The guy had a business. He's flying around the country.
Yep.
His girlfriend's renovating it for
Yep.
him. She gets tired of it.
I
So it's
forgot
not,
about that.
remember that one?
Yeah.
So it's a pain.
Torrington,
It's
yeah.
been vacant. It's
Yeah.
making bills. And the girlfriend's pissed because she has to be fixing it or just offered. And then she gets tired of fixing it.
Right.
And he looks at us, could you please buy my house? Yeah, whatever the deal is. I mean, people like that don't care. Just please take this house. It's like a Henny Youngman joke. Take my house. Please.
Exactly. And
It's true. That was one guy. He had like half of those going
and that
on.
converted you a lot, that deal. When we were in that house, that was the first time you
Yeah.
ever saw
Well,
one of
somebody
those.
said, yeah, sure, take them. Yeah, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's a problem. To me, a house is an asset.
Yep.
But it can be a problem for some folks.
Yep.
So do not be in your head. Be in their head. Get out of your head.
Good. Last one. And I know that most people won't believe this, but until you do what we do, which is do offers face to face, nose to nose, toe to toe, in people's houses, on their couches, in their living rooms, you will not know the magnitude of what I'm going to tell you until you do that multiple times a week. Okay? And that is, people just don't like realtors.
Mm.
They don't want to use them. They don't
Mhm.
like them. They have a story where they got screwed or didn't feel like the realtor did their job, and they just don't want to use them.
Mm.
And we hear that a lot.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep. True.
So, at the end of the day, here we are at the end of the podcast. Let's read the description again. Flipping houses shouldn't take, well, the name of the podcast is Why I Don't Do Due Diligence Before I Make an Offer. Flipping houses shouldn't take much time or cause much anxiety. That's why you and I are going to reveal how to remove 90% of the stress. So the point that I'm talking about there, the 90% of the stress removal is if you find the right find the right seller and then find the right buyer, you remove the stress. So the trick is to deal with motivated sellers. And we just went over a list of what makes them motivated, right? So deal with motivated sellers. These simple cherry-picked benefits are what the general public are aware of. That's the 4 ways that they buy houses, right? And they're not aware of that they can buy pretty houses. Okay? In fact, if you don't know these simple laws, you will most often end up with very skinny margins a lot of the time. The law is to buy pretty houses, not ugly houses. That's a simple law. Okay? So if you're buying pretty houses and you're getting owner financing, or you're using existing financing, or you're leasing, then the entire business changes. It's not about using bank money. Okay? Most investors today don't have the credit or money to do, and we just talked about that. It says, so they have no choice but to start with creative financing deals and avoid dangerous traps while doing deals. And if you're doing leasing, then there's no dangerous traps at all. I mean, the most you put up is $100, and that's it. Okay? And we covered that in this podcast. Okay? So, at the end, I want to give you a golden nugget. We already gave it to you, but I'm going to give it to you again. If you go to flippinghousesforrookies.com/free stuff, there's a bunch of good stuff on there. And that page, we keep adding to it. There's videos, there's forms. I put forms on there, prospect forms. There's a lease option explain form on there. There's scripts on there. There's all kinds of good stuff that we've accumulated or I've developed over the years. It's all in one spot now. Just go there and you can get it. Secondly, if you want to join our new podcast, which is called Flipping Houses Startup Bootcamp, which is where we're going to actually take you through like a check sheet manner and show you step by step how to get started and where to get started. It's done in series, so it's series 1, series 2, series 3, series 4, series 5.
Season.
I'm sorry, seasons. Thank you. I keep saying series. So it's season 1, season 2, season 3, and in each season, it's like first one is getting your mindset, second one is deal hunting, and then third one is what happens when sellers start calling you, and then fourth one is how to make offers, and so and each one of those seasons has 5, 6, 8 episodes, whatever it took in there. Like in deal hunting, we're going over all of our marketing and how to get these leads and how to find these people. It's all there. Okay, and then the Facebook page is connected to it so that you can get a lot of support. Okay?
So is it like Game of Real Estate?
Yeah, exactly. Game of Thrones. So anyways, just go to flippinghouses4rookies.com/startup bootcamp, all one word, startup bootcamp. Right now, we're just collecting emails until Halloween. And then we will, once we release it, whoever's on the waiting list will get it first. I'll probably wait a week before I release it and just give it to the people that are on the email list so they can get a jump start. No pun intended. And that's it. Last thing I want to say is if you go to Flipping Houses for Rookies /iTunes review, Emma? iTunes review. Yeah, iTunes review. Please give us a review of this podcast. We've made some changes recently. We're trying to keep it at 30 minutes, although we're at 40 minutes right now because of the commercials. But we're trying to cut it down and keeping it more concise so that you can listen to this on your ride to work and not spend an hour with us. So with that said, over and out. Next week we have a guest, Peter, one of my coaching clients. So that's going to be pretty cool. If you watch us,
she's got quite a story.
Oh, she's got an amazing story. And if you just listen to us on the podcast, we are on Facebook under. If you just go into Facebook, Flipping Houses for Rookies, we're actually going to have a live video with her where we talk to one another, interview her on Facebook on Thursday morning Eastern Standard Time at 9:30. Okay, so just go to Flipping Houses for Rookies on Facebook. Okay, whew, I can't believe I made it through all that. Over and out, Peter. See you next week.
Thanks for tuning in to the hottest real estate topics on the planet with Bill and Pete. If you want to continue learning how to buy and sell real estate without money or credit, head over to flippinghouses.club for some cutting-edge real estate wealth tools. Or contact us at info@flippinghouses.club.